Volume 5. Cassie here to talk about a topic that I have had to grow in so much these last couple of years: how to get comfortable being by yourself or spending quality alone time. Whether you are single, living alone, dating, married, living with roommates, whatever your season of life, I really think you'll have something to learn from this. If you're anything like me, a people pleaser, a high key extrovert, and just like a lover of community and being surrounded by like friends or significant others, families, or otherwise. I am missing McKenna today. I'm recording this episode alone. Pretty fitting for the topic that we're talking about, but I loved hearing her episodes the last couple of weeks on how to be a morning person, how to become a morning person, and how to develop better rhythms of routine. I was traveling. My travel schedule has been crazy the last couple of weeks. I've been to probably about 15 college campuses since we actually started this podcast back in July. When McKenna came to me and was like, we should start a podcast, I was like, we totally should, but like, do I actually have bandwidth to manage it? And so far, it's been so fun to add this on as like a fun side project and passion project in addition to my full-time job, which is speaking on college campuses, specifically to sorority women across the country. But with my travel schedule, and if you can't tell, I'm like kind of recovering from a cold, we decided to do some solo episodes to talk about things that we have a passion for, since our availability didn't overlap to connect. But I am missing her and so excited to connect with her next week to record more episodes for the weeks to come. For you all. So a little update from me. I have been traveling a lot. I just this month, just in September, I've been to California twice. I've been to Georgia, South Carolina, and this weekend I was supposed to be in Tennessee to work with a community out in East Tennessee, but just my immune system got the best of me, and I am recovering from a cold. And McKenna and I are really excited to record an episode on burnout soon, which I feel like so susceptible to from like working too hard and like trying to like please and achieve. And something that has been like a motto for my year is just because you can be high capacity doesn't mean you should be or have to be. And so I've been trying to like live from a place of doing less better. And sometimes my ambition gets the best of me, and I think I just worked myself way too hard and my immune system got taken down with it. So I am really excited to be here with you all to talk about being alone, how to be comfortable being by yourself, because in all this travel that I do, which I have been doing now for, let's see, since 2018, fall of 2018 is when I started really traveling full time. And then when I was living in Colorado, when I first moved here, is when my travel slowed down a ton. And then the pandemic. So I was like serving in I call it my premature housewife era. I was like living with the guy I was dating at the time and like super hunkered down, like making meals, taking the dog on a walk, like kind of working on the side, to now being like full-blown working, full-blown traveling again. It's been a really unique relationship for me to build with myself of how to be comfortable, especially in like places that I'm unfamiliar with, being alone. But even for those of you who might be listening who are like, okay, Cass, my routine is the same day in and day out. I just spend a lot of time alone and I either love it or I hate it. We're going to hit on that too. I think the hard thing about being alone, especially for people that like love to be around others and like big groups of people, is I think specifically for women, it can be really easy for us to like defer to others' interests or preferences rather than like get comfortable voicing our own. And so one thing that I loved, especially when I first started traveling, it was my first year out of college, 2018 to 2019. I remember just like developing my own like airport routine, because I was in airports so frequently, when I would like to get there, what I would like to do, the music that I would listen to, the kind of shops that I would go into to get different like coffee drinks or lunch items. It was really unique to have to like go through the process of like, okay, what do I want to do right now? What do I want to eat? What am I in the mood for as someone who was like super comfortable like letting others make some of those decisions, I think a really cool part about starting to spend time alone um, is allowing yourself to like make some of those own decisions for yourself and really like allow your preferences and likes and dislikes to come through to even your understanding of like what things do you like or you don't like, what are things that you're recognizing that you do for people because you love them and you want to spend time with them and seek their interests versus your own. I think another thing that comes to mind a lot when we're spending time alone is if we are like very hung up on like being around people all the time, is it's really hard sometimes to like be super present with ourselves when we are alone. And what I mean by that is like when we're making a meal by ourselves, even like to wrap up an evening, right? Like after a day of work, or if it's just a Friday night with no plans, it can be really easy to like pick up takeout or make your favorite meal, whatever those things are, right? Playing into your preferences, but then spend a bunch of time like scrolling on TikTok or turning on a show that you're binging. And there's nothing wrong with TikTok or binging Netflix, but I think sometimes we are missing out on opportunities to just like recognize the quiet around us, like really savor our meal in front of us and just like be in the quiet with ourselves and make ourselves comfortable with that instead of distracting ourselves with whatever like banter is happening on our phones or on our TVs. And so one step that I would like really encourage you to look into when you're thinking about like becoming more comfortable being alone is just like eliminating a lot of the noise that we are susceptible to like leaning into or turning on to distract ourselves from being alone. Because I think something really cool can happen in that time that we're alone, where we're able to like flesh out if we're feeling like a little like anxious or frustrated or discouraged. It can be easier just to like turn to distractions like TikTok or texting or Netflix to distract ourselves, when what we probably need to do is just like take some time processing that thing and like come to terms with it. Now, if you're in a season of life where you're alone a lot, maybe you're like me, you travel a ton for work and you're on the road and you're like, Cass, I'm like a people person, I need to stay connected. I think that's very different. Like texting, or I mean, TikTok and Netflix is very different than like finding time to like catch up with people on the phone. One of the ways that I like stayed sane that first year that I was on the road traveling full time was like scheduling in my calendar, like in my work calendar, in a place where I was in a different city or halfway across the country, 3 time zones from my family, was like scheduling in calls with some of my like close family and friends that like went on my work calendar that my clients like couldn't book, so that I would have time to like reconnect with the people who meant the most to me when I was in a place that I didn't have a lot of actual community, right? It's just like work friends or like professional relationships. So I think finding time, even when you are alone, one way that you can be more comfortable being alone is knowing that you're not alone, knowing that you do have that community and that support elsewhere. And while it's really good to like lean on those people, I also think it's like a great opportunity to make new friends, right? Like I was saying, sometimes when you go out to dinner in a place that you're traveling to either for work or maybe you just have like a quick layover somewhere and you're grabbing a bite to eat by yourself, it can be easy to be like on our phone scrolling the whole time. But what would it look like to just like turn your phone over and like look up and look around and like make conversation with your waiter, or like I always like to sit at the bar when I travel alone, even like when I'm not drinking, even I like don't drink alcohol when I'm traveling for work, just to like stay alert, you know, traveling as a 27-year-old woman, I'm like very cautious. It's like so fun to like make friends with the bartender, like ask them what like the best thing is about living in this city, or working in an airport, like what are some of the fun things that they see, or the people to the left or right of you. I've made so many fun friends just like sitting at hotel bars, airport bars, or just restaurants around town. You never know who you might run into. I've started practicing the same thing on airplanes recently. I'm so accustomed to like being in my zone. McKenna knows, having traveled with me a couple times. I'm a little off my game when I'm traveling with a friend, but normally when I travel alone, I've got like my baseball cap, my hood if I'm feeling extra non-communicative, my AirPods in, I'm listening to my like whatever crunchy alt playlist, and I'm like in my window seat, like snuggled up for my flight. I've been doing a new thing lately where I'm like not putting my AirPods in until the flight's in the air, which makes opportunity to like talk to the people around me. And what happens when you talk to people that you aren't super familiar with or know nothing about you is they ask you like what you do, why you do what you do, where you're from. And if you've moved around a lot like I have, or if you do a kind of unique job like I do, or you're kind of new in your job or really proud of your job, it gives you an opportunity to like talk about the things that mean a lot to you, that some people in your like close circle, maybe friends or family, might know really well. But what happens to me most times when I'm like talking to a stranger about my story, what I do, how I ended up in Colorado, the whole bit, once I like end that brief conversation and like go back to my window seat or my meal if I'm at a restaurant by myself, is I'm then processing like how I got to where I am. And I think what happens for me after I talk to someone who I don't know very well about my story is it makes me really proud of all I've accomplished. I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for how hard we work, all the what seemed like uh, meaningless or remedial steps that it took to get you to where you are. Sometimes we can overlook those as huge steps in the direction to the life that you have now. If you're not super content with where you are now, it also can like bring up some emotions of why am I discontent with my life now? What are some things that I really want to work on or need to like properly grieve? Maybe I need some help grieving or need to like confide in to my friends instead of like pretending that I'm okay to them, to recognize that I'm allowed to ask for help. And when we talk to strangers, like especially when we're like on our own, we're not traveling with like a significant other or a friend who doesn't know our story, we can be reminded of some of like the really high highs and the really low lows of where we're at right now when people start asking us questions and we have to talk about where we're at. And it can really remind us of like, man, I'm not super happy with where I am, or I am not giving myself enough credit for how far I've come. And I hope that even if you leave those conversations not super content with where you are, or you recognize that there's a long way that you want to go or grow, that you can still give yourself the credit that you deserve for being where you are, wherever that is and whatever that looks like. Now, we talked about a lot of ways to be alone, specifically around like travel or like evening routines, right? Like what meals might look like or travel. But I also think there are like other little ways that we can practice like mindfulness, like even in our daily routines, whether we are dating, married, single, wherever we may be. If you like anytime you're in the car, right? Like driving somewhere, even if you are like, I know McKenna's story is very different than mine, right? She has a really rowdy, oh gosh, how old is Leela now? McKenna's gonna watch this and be like, she should know how old my baby was. Last time I was talking about Leela, she was 15 months old. So I'm gonna go ahead and guess she's 17 months old now. A year and a half. I know Leela's around a year and a half. However many months that is. Some of you listening probably have like a baby going on toddler, going on teenager. I'm sure that's how it feels. A husband, a partner, friends, roommates that don't give you a lot of like quiet time or alone time at home. Or maybe even in the car sometimes if you like have that little one you're toting around your hip everywhere you go. But there are, I'm sure, moments that you are driving to a workout class or going to get your hair done or your nails done that you find yourself alone. And I think those moments in the car can be easy, like we talked about, to like turn on distractions and like kind of like numb your way out of some of those like thoughts, feelings, or emotions that your body might be trying to process in that space that you have to be alone. I would challenge you just to like start maybe even like the first 5 or 10 minutes of your drive with the radio off, like just focused on the road and allowing yourself to like listen to your own breath, your own heartbeat, and process through some of those things that we talked about, right? Maybe you won't be talking or bringing up some of those things with a stranger, but if you're just left a fight with your partner or your roommate in the house, you just got off a frustrating phone call with your mom or a coworker, right? Those moments in the car, I find for me, or even like a walk around the neighborhood, can be so restorative for me to like gain perspective just with myself. I think one of the beautiful things about a relationship, about developing a really sincere relationship with yourself, is being able to call yourself out when you're recognizing yourself swing to one extreme or another as a result of really hard or difficult conversations. And obviously for married people, it might be a little harder to like find that time alone to really create space for you to like check in with yourself, or if you have roommates or you live with family. But also on the other side of that, I think as single people, like I'm single, I'm not on dating apps, but I know how hard it is to meet someone. And I'm sure if you're listening to this and you're single, you're probably like, I wish I didn't have so much alone time. Like, I wish I didn't have so much time to get comfortable with myself and my routine. I just want to validate that you are allowed to be super comfortable and content with being by yourself, but also have that desire of companionship to be with someone in the future. I think when we're single, like one of two things can happen. One, we can like swing to the extreme of, I am so comfortable. I've got like all my routines. I'm so independent. I feel in control. And I don't want even like an edge or like a glimpse of anyone thinking that I am desperate in any capacity. So I won't even like allow myself to desire wanting to be in a relationship in the future. Like if it happens, it happens. Or on the other end of things, it's like I wanted to be a relationship so bad that I don't want to get too comfortable with myself because I want to be like moldable and adaptable to like whatever someone else wants or whatever someone else's lifestyle would require of me. And I think you're allowed to like meet in the middle. I think you're allowed, and this is like the route that I have adapted. It's like I recognize that I have a desire to like be in a relationship and be married in the future, but I also am so content where I'm at right now. Like I love my routines, I love my life, I love my friends, I love traveling all the time, I love my Trader Joe's hauls and living with my roommate and our movie nights and college football Saturdays. Like I love the life that I have, but I'm willing to accommodate that or like meet someone halfway with my life when the right one comes along. And I think that's part of dating, is like when you know, you know. So I just want to encourage anyone who's single in that it is okay to have a desire to be in a relationship while still being like super content and confident exactly where you're at. So if you're listening and you're like, okay, well, I understand there's different like scenarios of how I can get comfortable being alone. What does that actually look like? I think one easy way to get more comfortable being alone is if you aren't a journaler. I think journaling can help a lot. And it's not for everyone, but I find it so helpful. I mean, I'm a daily journaler, so I've got like a prayer journal that I like pray in every morning. And then I have another journal that I like jot down like big updates, like things I'm proud of, things that have been really challenging. Every couple months, like I go back to that and I just like reflect on like how far I've come, and where I'm going. So, journaling can be a great way to do that. I also think like if you're an external processor, like having people that you're able to like process those things out to. I always recommend though going into social situations, if it's coffee with a friend or like a group outing or like a friend's party or whatever, recognizing how much like social bandwidth you have for a situation. Because the things that we have to do for ourselves, if it's like meal prep, if it's prep that last project, if it's get an early night of sleep for a big meeting that you have the next morning, it's always good to go into social situations with an understanding of how much that you actually have to give, so that you know like where you can set boundaries. So when you're with your people, you're like fully with them, and then you're like super confident when you leave to like take care of yourself and the things that matter most to you. So we'd love to hear in the YouTube comments, or on our DMs on Instagram or TikTok, call you in 5, about what practices you incorporate into your life to really develop that relationship with yourself. And we hope that this helped you today in helping develop a more meaningful relationship with you. See you next time.